Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast presented by Onyx. On this episode, I am joined by Todd Bumgardner, who is a strength and conditioning coach, amongst many other things in regards to fitness. He owns a few different companies, but Human Predator Pack Mule seems to be the most fitting for hunters. His approach to hunting fitness and the types of workouts for hunting are unique and approachable to anyone that really wants to succeed in the mountains year after year. And I've actually just started training with Todd, and so virtually training with him, as he's helped me prepare for my high country mule deer hunt this fall. So I'm looking forward to seeing the results of that. The podcast is brought to you by Onyx, and the Onyx Hunt app is your premier GPS hunting app that turns your phone into a working GPS. Recently, Onyx added elite membership benefits for all elite users to get deals on other hunting companies, as well as free memberships to some other scouting tools like Hunt and Fool and Top Rut. If you want to check out the Onyx Hunt app for yourself, head over to onyxmaps.com and use the coupon code EMW to save 20%. And Tethered is a company that's founded on the principles of educating the hunting community on saddle hunting, while creating the most innovative, lightweight, safe products for saddle hunting. So I will be at the Tethered Teach and Train Tour in May in West Virginia with the Untamed guys. There'll be more details to come soon once everything's confirmed there. So just be on the lookout for that. If you want to learn about saddle hunting, get your hands on the product and try it out. This will be a great event to take a look at. So to learn more about tethered and saddle hunting, head over to tetherednation.com. Maven Optics. Maven is building the highest quality optics at half of the price of their competitors through their direct-to-consumer business model. They want to create the best optics for the job, period. Their products are backed with a lifetime no-fault warranty and an incredible customer experience. I'm using the B2 9x45 binos in all my Western hunts. It is truly a low-light monster, allowing you to see through the binos longer than you can with your naked eye. You can use the coupon code EastMeetsWest-gift for a free gift with any full-price optics order at mavenbuilt.com. The Spartan Forge Outfitter utilizes years of military background and machine learning to pull millions of data points to accurately predict deer movement, including GPS data, 30 years of weather, academic, and state research. They're using science rather than someone's opinion to figure out movement for your specific hunting area so that you make sure you're hunting on the right days. The Outfitter is available online now and will become an app soon. The price will increase at that point, so if you do buy it now, you're locked into that lower rate. It will not raise for you specifically if you get in at this lower rate. And also, if you use the coupon code EastMeetsWest, you save 25%. You can check that out at spartanforge.ai. All right, this week I'm bringing back the Mountain Buck Story of the Week, or otherwise known as Mountain Buck Monday. And this comes from Andy Zimmerman. So Andy wrote to me and said, this past season, I was focused more of my season from Maryland public land to the northern mountains of Pennsylvania. I was able to harvest this buck the second day of the Pennsylvania rifle season when my buddy walked around a large clear cut, and this buck and a smaller one came out and circled around the bottom side of the cut where I was able to make a 60-yard shot. Thanks to your info, it made us focus our attention to these clear cuts. So if you want to check out Andy's buck, I'd recommend heading over to the East Meets West Hunt Instagram page and East Meets West Outdoors on Facebook and checking it out. It's a great buck and an awesome hunt by Andy, kind of going out of his comfort zone here and leaving his home state of Maryland there, heading up to Pennsylvania and finding success during the rifle season. So awesome job there from Andy. And all right, so in other news, I'd mentioned last week about the Founders Speaker Series, which is the 12-week program that Heather Kelly of Heather's Choice has created to really be able to help anybody that wants to start a business, has a business, and wants to learn how to grow it, but you don't know what to do next. This is an opportunity to learn from the founders in the outdoor industry who are building big businesses with massive impact, big audiences, and big income. And so if you really want this business idea to come to fruition with the help and support of people like yourself, then the Founder Speaker Series is your chance to get the business mentorship you're looking at. So it's 18 hours of FaceTime with the founders who are living the dream and have a successful business in the outdoor industry. So I will be one of these speakers along with all these other really great people that are on there. Brian Call from Gritty. You got Ryan Lampers from Stealthy Hunter. You've got just a whole bunch of people, Robbie Denning, Lorenzo Sartini, just so many really great people that are on this. And Heather will be interviewing them for 60 minutes, and then there'll be 30 minutes of you being able to ask questions. There's no secrets to it. Everyone's putting everything out there to try to be able to help you learn. This is your chance to be able to do it. And if you're interested in that, the speaker series starts on May 4th. So it's coming up fairly quickly here. So kind of have to head over to the website, which I'll put a link in the notes section here of the podcast, and I'll also send out an email if you're not signed up for the email list. But go over and check it out and read through some of the topics that everybody will be covering, the people that are on the list, and I think it'll be really beneficial for anybody that's serious about wanting to start a business. I wish I had this when I first started it, and I'll definitely be tuning in to listen to everyone and ask questions throughout the other different parts of the conversation here. So definitely check it out, Founder Speaker Series. And if you're interested, you have to act soon to be able to do that. And there's a bunch of different options as far as payment plans and everything else to make it worthwhile and easy for you to be able to do there. So just an FYI, when you're looking at things like this, as far as, all right, why isn't something like this free? Well, everyone that's in here, that's in this event, doesn't work for free, and really you shouldn't either. A huge part of entrepreneurship is owning your worth, and your time is valuable, your knowledge is valuable, and your skills are really valuable. So each of the speakers are being paid to come support and mentor you. So that's the reason that's, fair to pay to play, so to speak. So I can promise you that you will get way more out of it than you're putting into it up front here. So highly, highly recommend it. Plus being able to just talk to all of these individuals here. All right. So other news, upcoming draw deadlines, Kentucky Elk. If you want to apply for Kentucky Elk, it's super cheap to do so. And April 30th at midnight Eastern time is the deadline. I just finally applied today. Applied for both archery and rifle, so you can check that out. All right, and other than that, I tell you, I was on vacation last week. I mentioned it on the podcast, but I was went to Puerto Rico with my girlfriend and just enjoyed time on the beach, spent some time in the rainforest, did a little bit of hiking down there in the tropical mountains that they have on the island. Just absolutely incredible. It was so nice to get away. Haven't been on non-hunting related vacation, and I can't tell you how long. And I was kind of worried I wasn't going to know just kind of how to turn it off, and I did exactly that. I didn't do one thing for work there. I didn't think about anything, just really focused on being in the moment and enjoying it with my girlfriend there. And we had a great time. It was awesome, but I'm refreshed, ready to get back to it. And just, feels good to kind of have that reset a little bit. So part of that reset is starting a new training program, and I'm training with Todd, who's on this podcast here. He reached out about wanting to see if I was interested in working with him to get ready for my mule deer hunt based off the principles in this podcast here, and started this week. So just went through one day of it so far, getting the baseline as he's trying to figure out where my level is currently at and how to build on that. I'm really excited about it. So I think this podcast would be really valuable to anybody that's listening. I think that it's a very approachable way of training and not something that's overwhelming or feeling like you have to kill yourself every time to be in good shape. That is not the purpose of this. And I think Todd speaks of it very well. He trains some of the most elite people in the world outside of hunting as well. And I think that you get a lot out of this, whether you're getting ready to hunt out west, whether you're hunting in the East Coast or whatever it is, or just in life in general, being healthy and in shape. So, and I guess if you want to beat COVID, being healthy is one of those things that helps you out too. Anyways, all right. I hope you enjoy this podcast here with Todd Bumgardner, and hope everyone has a great rest of your week. All right, we're live. Todd Bumgardner, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to get to talk to you. I had you've come highly recommended from some people that I greatly respect, and a mutual friend of ours, Matt Comment.
Yeah, Matt's a good dude, man.
He's one of the best. He's someone I look up to greatly, and just has been a really, really good person, and to me helped me kind of get into hunting all over, and just always with someone to rely on. I haven't talked to Matt in a little while, but he's a great dude.
He is, man. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he's always willing to help. And quite honestly, I shoot with him. I train Matt. Matt trains with me at my gym. Okay. And he and I shoot together once or twice a month, and he's actually turned me into. I feel confident shooting out to like 600 yards now, and like you, I grew up in Pennsylvania. I think the farthest shot I took on a deer in Pennsylvania was maybe 60 yards. Yeah. So it's like to make that kind of progress is pretty cool. But he's a good teacher, man. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it sounds like you're a pretty good teacher yourself too, if he's training with you. Yeah, no, it's good to finally get him to listen. I think he'll tell you, in the past, he liked to burn hot, man, and he trained a little bit too hard, got himself in some trouble, and now we're rebuilding. That's funny. Well, cool. Why don't you start off by telling the listeners a little bit who you are and what you do? Yeah, man. So, like Beau said, my name is Todd. I'm from Pennsylvania, but I live in Northern Virginia in Loudoun County, and I work as a strength and conditioning coach for a Tier 1 tactical unit. I own a gym. I run a mentorship program for other trainers and coaches. I do some writing and some consulting, and then I also have a training program for hunters called Human Predator Pack Mule, and it's kind of been my gig, man. I spent my entire adult life in strength and conditioning, and now trying to give back to hunting with it as well. Yeah, that's awesome. I noticed, like in your Instagram bio and stuff, it sounds like you have your hands in a whole bunch of different businesses. Probably more than I should, honestly. Probably more than I should. I do. It's just fun, man. It's just exciting to be in a bunch of different things and try to accomplish a bunch of things. And it's like, sometimes it's tough to narrow down your passions and which one you're going to stick with, but it's like, I don't know, for now it's working. Yeah, no, I can relate a little bit. And I feel like anyone like yourself and other, full-time entrepreneurs I've talked to is like, all have the similar, mindset. And I'd say problems and good things at the same time, where you kind of get your hands in a whole bunch of different stuff. Well, you see something, you're like, I can figure that out. I know how to do that. Yep. You know what I mean? And then you just go with it and you're like, well, son of a bitch, now I have a business. So that's just how it is, That's funny. Well, before we get into your businesses, I did want to say, so we're both from Pennsylvania, and that's something that we clicked on, and you're from really not that far away from me. So that's kind of cool too. Yeah. A couple hours, man. I just, grew up about a half an hour south of State College, in Mifflin County, Pennsylvania. There's a bunch of Amish folks, and that's about it. And you. Yeah, a bunch of Amish folks and guys like me. That's about it. Yeah. So when did you move down to Virginia? I've been here since 2016. So I was I was in Pennsylvania. I most of my life I played football at Lake Home in college. And then from there, I was in college, man. And I was like, I was going to school for psychology, and I thought about either being a special education teacher or being a clinical psychologist. And like, neither of those felt good to me. And I went to, like, every time I would go to the library, I would end up looking up stuff on strength and conditioning or getting on all the different websites or doing research. And so I ended up in that field because I was like, I'm not gonna. And every time after that, when I tried to have an office job, I would just get fired. So I was like, well, I can't really do this. So I ended up bouncing around between Pennsylvania and Connecticut, and I came back to Pennsylvania, and I was home. Man, I almost took like a sabbatical, and I just took the fall, and I hunted and fished with my buddies, and then moved down here to help my buddy Chris, who was also my business partner in our online business, grow his gym. And came down to be kind of like the operations manager and staff and run the staff and stuff like that. So I've been here for 5 years now.
Okay. So I guess if you wouldn't mind, break down the different companies that you're a part of, just so one from my own knowledge and then also for the listeners here.
Yeah. So I have a gym with my business partner, Chris. It's called Beyond Strength. We essentially train folks to be able to do whatever they want to do, because our whole thought process is life is better when your body's capable. So we make people strong and we condition them, and it's mostly normal folks. And then he and I also together have the gig with the tactical unit. I can tell you who it is off the air. I'm not allowed to say it publicly. Yep. But we work with them, and I work with the new recruits. I spend about 10 months with them as they're going through their train up, mostly keeping them healthy, kind of almost retraining them, because a lot of them are former spec ops guys. So they still think like they're 25 and they can burn really hot, and they can't. So it's getting them through their train ups. And then, we have Strength Faction, which is our mentorship program for other trainers and other gym business owners. And like I said, I have Human Predator Pack Mule, which I do customized training for backcountry and mountain hunting. Okay,
awesome. Yeah, I mean, you have your hands in a lot of things, but they all seem to kind of relate. I mean, obviously, they all kind of come back to the same thing. So you just kind of branched out in different avenues there.
How many times can you paint with the same paintbrush in a different way, I guess, is it, man? Because it's like, it's like you get to a certain point where you want a different challenge, or, you're solving a problem for yourself and you want to be able to help other people solve that same problem. And it's just, I keep running into that, and I can't help myself. I keep doing more with it,
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So what made you, like, from the mountain hunting side of things, where'd you see like the downfall, like the problem to solve? What did you see there?
So, well, I got it. I started getting into it because, I would hear my buddies coming back from Colorado or Idaho or whatever it was, and they were elk hunting. And I was like, man, I'd like to do that too. I've never, hunted off the East Coast outside of Pennsylvania or outside of Virginia. And, I stopped hunting for about a decade for personal reasons that we don't need to get into here. But my buddies were always talking about it. And even when I wasn't hunting, I was like, man, I'd like to do that someday. And so I was like, well, I'm going to do it. And I decided that I was going to try to get some elk tags. And so I went looking to learn from other people. I was like, well, there's people that are doing this already, and I'd like to see, how they apply the principles that I already apply and understand. So it's like, I knew that I needed to train for endurance. I knew I needed to develop my aerobic system more than it was at the current time. And I was like, well, I want to see how other people are doing this. So I went looking around, and I was like really disappointed. And I just couldn't find anything that I was like, man, this is actually well thought out. This is organized. This is programmed well. I just couldn't find it. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll do this myself. And so I started working on, just a lot of aerobic development, and we can talk about more what I mean with that. And I took on the process myself, and I looked at like when I would be hunting and worked backwards from there, and decided that, if I was going to do this for myself, I feel like other guys could probably use it too. So that's why I started taking on clients with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one of the things I've heard you mention a couple times in this episode, and just through following you on Instagram, you talk about guys running hot, and kind of the, I guess maybe, I don't know if issue is the right word with that, but kind of explain what you see from what that means exactly.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I think most people try to train at too high of intensities too frequently. And it doesn't really do anything for you that much. So let's take it back to this. So the biggest thing that people need is strength, and they need a good aerobic system. And that's just for being a human being, man. And so a lot of people try to do this really, really intense training. And if you don't have the aerobic system to support that, so you're not going to recover, and you're going to work at really, really high heart rates all the time. And so that means that you're just going to sap yourself, and it's going to make it really difficult for you to recover. And you're not actually going to build the machinery that you need to build to be able to go out and have the endurance and have the strength and the things that you need to go out and perform. And so that's what I really see. Is I see a lot of really high intensity, not well organized stuff. So like most of your training when it comes to your conditioning should be done at or below something called your maximum aerobic function. And there's this equation for it called, God, I can't say this guy's name. Anyway, just look that up. There's this thing called the MAF equation, and it's 180 minus your name or minus your age. And that tells you about the highest heart rate you should be doing a lot of your aerobic training at. So like I'll be 35 next month. So mine would be about 145. But since I have a fair base of aerobic training, I can go to about 150. And so most people, most of their conditioning should be at or below that heart rate, because it trains your aerobic system to function well. And that means that you'll be able to do a lot more work without jacking your heart rate up, which means you'll just by nature be able to do a lot more work. So if you can work at that intensity, it increases the amount of work that you can do without jacking your heart rate up. Your heart rate gets up, you start to fatigue faster, and you run out of gas. So the main goal is to just make your body efficient.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I can definitely say that a lot of times I fall under that category as someone that probably doesn't do that necessarily correctly. And just thinking when you're talking about, I'm doing the math in my head as far as I'm 28 years old. And so, 152, I think I don't know if I can add or subtract very well without a calculator anymore. But anyways, so I know that a lot of my workouts, I track it on my watch that I run hotter than that when I'm doing it. And one thing I think that I notice when I'm doing extremely like high intensity type stuff for over, say, throughout the week, every day, kind of doing something similar to that, I mix it up between more. It's usually every other day I'm doing something like that, but I do realize that I get burned out pretty quickly with it. And I try to tell myself as far as like, oh, you just gotta get through it, you gotta toughen up essentially with it. And I want to say that did you do a podcast a while ago with Adam Yonke from Beyond the Kill? Okay.
Yep.
I was gonna say I remember hearing this concept at one point before, and so that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, man. And the thing is like, I can remember being in my mid to late 20s, and I lifted really heavy then. And at that point, like I could go in and slam a sixer and squat 500 pounds and it wouldn't be a big deal. But the thing is just like you pay for it.
Yeah.
You end up paying for it. And that's the thing when it comes to this conditioning too, man, is like you said, you start to get burnt out.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is if you train to develop your aerobic base, and you train in similar to these ways that I'm talking about, you don't get burnt out. And you can do more and more and more work, and it actually builds the machinery that you need to go out and perform and have endurance with it. Because the thing about it is like, dude, you're tough enough. You don't need to get any tougher. You know that you can do it. Like, so it's build the machinery, which is like, the muscular endurance, the training your heart to function the way that it needs to function, all of those things. And then you go out and, you have all of the tools you need to go perform and not really worry about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So like, all right. So if you're looking at your approach to it, like kind of, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but like if you're looking at a week or so, like you're laying out your week to work, what kind of stuff does it fall under that category to build that aerobic function, and then also the strength as well?
Yes, dude. So it's as simple as hiking. So I can walk you through my current training week right now.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yep. So on Mondays, I strength train. I strength train and do some plyometric work. which would be like reactive jumping and things like that. And then at the end of that session, I'll do about 30 minutes of what's called cardiac output, which would be the same kind of work that we're talking about. So that's essentially keeping your heart rate somewhere between like 110 and 140, because in that heart rate zone, you stretch your heart more, specifically the left ventricles. So then you're able to pump out more blood with each stroke. And it also is just with more blood flow, you recover better, and it affects your nervous system as well. So that's Monday. Tuesday is high intent. It's something called, we'll essentially call it high intensity intervals, but it's called high resistance intervals. So it's like I'll do sled sprints for about 30 yards, and I'll use a weight that makes it take somewhere between 8 to 12 seconds. And then at the end of that 8 to 12 seconds, I wait until my heart rate is back down into that aerobic zone, like 120. Because it allows you to keep your effort higher for longer, and you're actually training your muscles to be able to put out more of that effort rather than keeping your heart rate real jacked up and trying to push. You actually you actually destroy the mechanisms in your body that you need to be able to do that with endurance. So it's training to do that. It's essentially making like your fast twitch muscle fibers more aerobic, and it's training your recovery systems, and all of those kind of things. So that's on Tuesday. Wednesday, I lift again. Sometimes I'll do some of that cardiac output or not. And then Thursdays, I get into what most folks would call zone 2, which is a little bit higher of a heart rate. So you're there if you can breathe through your nose, but like when you breathe through your nose, it's like tough to breathe through your nose.
Yeah.
So that's that workout. And then on Fridays, I do a combination of different things. So I'll do something called aerobic plyometrics. So essentially you do a lot of jumping for 30 seconds and for somewhere around 30 seconds, then you rest for 30 seconds. And essentially it's the same kind of thing where you're training your fast twitch muscles to have more endurance. And then on top of that, I'll do some more of the cardiac output training. But I also do some different stuff on that day where I'll either accrue a lot of work with my upper body for muscular endurance. So like one of the things that I think, I'll take a real quick side step. One of the things that I think guys mess up when they're going to hunt and do a backpack hunt is they'll do their gym workout and then maybe they'll do some rucking and hiking, but that really doesn't extend beyond a couple hours. And as you know, if you're going to hunt elk, if you're going to the tundra to hunt caribou, whatever you're doing, you're going to be moving all day. And coming from the east or coming from your desk job or whatever, and then thinking you're going to go work out for 90 minutes and then that's going to support you for the entire day, it just won't. You're just going to bonk at some point. So about this time of the year, I start something where I start moving all day. So I'll do push-ups starting from when I get up out of bed until dinner time. And I'll just try to accrue a certain number. I think the last week I did 300 throughout the day, and I did about 125 chin-ups. So I do that. So I start to move all day, and then I start to coincide like my hiking with that. So I'll extend my hikes and I'll decrease that all day body weight work. And then I'll go and build up to do like, for example, somebody could use their scouting trip where they'll take like a 48-hour hike and go back and look at some areas or whatever. And I try to coincide it with that kind of stuff. But I also do just some upper body work to just build a lot of density and a lot of muscular endurance. Saturdays, I don't do anything. I take it off. And then Sundays, I typically try to hike somewhere between 6 and 10 miles. Unloaded right now, no weight. So
okay.
Now it'll be this weekend. I'll go out and try to find some sheds.
There you go. That's what I was thinking. Like that's kind of a good combination. Well, I mean,
you're doing a lot of that stuff. I see you're out looking for sheds and hiking and scouting all the time. Yep. That counts, man. That counts. Yeah. Yeah.
And one thing that I started doing actually this year, and a lot of it had to do with reading one of your posts about it, was I would always this time of year try to throw weight in my pack as I'd go and hike. And I wasn't ready for doing that like right off the bat, because when I get a chance, if I get a Saturday to go out, I'm going to hike all day. So say I'm doing 12 to 14 miles of scouting different places, going stuff, and I start throwing weight in my pack, going from not doing that at all during the winter, I feel some pain spots, let's put it that way. Sure, and I and having troubles with different like some of my joints and muscles being super tight and just different things that and just recently I started doing it with little weight, like I'm just whatever I'm carrying to go out, a couple Nalgene bottles of water, whether I'm grabbing some trail cameras, some snacks, some stuff in my pack, and just going that way. And I've been feeling better at it. And would you recommend, like, say you're doing something like that and then eventually just start working up, maybe putting a little bit more weight in?
Yeah. You just don't need it yet. Now's the time to really, like, when you think in terms of like the strength and conditioning world, you typically think volume first. So like the amount of work. So you want to accrue a bunch of volume and then you start to add the intensity. So like this time of year, get your hiking in, get your walking in. You don't really need a bunch of weight. I've done one hike so far this year where I added 10% of my body weight. And that's just because, actually Matt and I were going out we go out and hike at Manassas Battlefield. And I'm at the point where it's like, I can't get my heart rate up enough there if I don't have a little bit of weight. But when I go out into the mountains, I don't carry any weight right now. We just don't need it. And then throughout the year, I'll work up to consistently doing maybe 6 miles with about 20% of my body weight. And then I'll do very, very short intervals with heavy weight right before maybe shipping off for a hunt, just to get used to having my pack on. But it's like a very short amount of work. And, another way that you can get really used to the heavy pack without beating the shit out of yourself is doing something called high intensity continuous training, where you put your pack like somewhere between, depending on the person. I do my sets at about 100 pounds, but you have to consider that I've done this for a while. I'm also about a 210 pound guy. So I'll put maybe 100 pounds in my pack and then do box step ups, 1 rep every 4 to 5 seconds, like as hard as I can do them, because not only does it get used to the pack, but that it builds the aerobic capacity of your fast twitch muscles. So if you're thinking about like, we need them to perform like our slow twitch muscles. And then you think about guys like us who, if we're going out west to hunt, we're used to being in the east. And while we might have some inclines and some ridges to run and stuff, we don't have the elevation.
Yep. So
we need our body to be as efficient with oxygen as possible, because when we go out to the Rockies or wherever we're going, and even if you're only at 9,000 feet, like it's still way higher than wherever. So having those mechanisms built into your muscles helps your body work way, way better at elevation. So,
that makes sense. And like, and thinking about it, like, so my hunt that I'm planning this year is a high country mule deer hunt where I'll be hunting anywhere from 12 to 13,000 feet up in some of the spots in Colorado. And yeah, that's I've never hunted that high. I've been up over some spots at 12,000, but most of my hunting has been 11,000 and down, essentially. Yeah. So that's going to be a whole nother world for me. And I remember, like, when I first started doing it, I started training with a lot of weight in my pack because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. I'd push mow my yard with 100-pound sandbag in the backpack, and I got out there and I struggled pretty. I mean, I did it, but I wasn't feeling the greatest.
Exactly, and but that's the thing, is like we think about the thing that we're most fearful of, or the thing that might be the toughest, and we prepare for that, because it's like, well, man, you kill an elk, that quarter is going to be 80 to 100 pounds, man. And you're like, I got to walk that out. And so that's the thing that people see, and like the thing that even gets like, turns into like something mythic that people talk about all the time, and like this toughness for the pack out. And I was like, but there's all these other things that you have to be prepared for. And maybe it's even walking slow when you stalk, because it's like, if you walking slow takes a lot of energy, man. And if you're not prepared to even do something like that, it's tough. So it's like, if you do all of these other base things first, you're going to be even more prepared for the pack out. And when you have to do it, guess what? You'll do it. And it's not like you're not going to get a trophy if you do it fast. You know what I mean? Like, you just have to get it done. So
yeah, that totally makes sense. Like, and things I'm thinking about too is, like, as say I'm on an elk hunt and all of a sudden you hear a bull bugling, or maybe you even see them or something, but they're moving up to an area and you got to move fast to get into position. So then you're going from, maybe walking slow to almost running as you're getting there. And then the hardest part, maybe you get there and you get there in time, but you have to be able to calm yourself down to be able to shoot, effectively.
And that's like, not only is that just being able to manage your emotions and understand the situation, but that's also having a good aerobic system, because that's where you recover, man. Like if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to get your heart rate down. I mean, you might get up there, but it's like, would you rather have the ability to do one sprint really, really fast, or like 10 sprints, maybe not quite as fast, but you can do 10 of them and you can recover from it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing, you know? But that's the whole foundational part, man. And that's why it's like, with my guys, we really focus on, we do a lot of work in that heart rate range. And, you know, we work on the other aspects too, where it's like my guys have some stuff in there that has a whole lot of suck in it. Like we do some things called for threshold training. So it's like you work at a pretty high heart rate for like 5 to 8 minutes. So you're used to working at those heart rates, but we work on the recovery aspect of it as well. And it's not just like some blistering thing, and it all fits into the plan. So it's all a part of it, but you just don't need as much of it as people think.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So a question is, a debate that I always have with one of my hunting partners, Mason, is we hike completely different. So like when I hike, he says I hike like a slow death pace. He's like, you don't stop, but you just go at a pace that like
perfect
is killing you inside, where he likes to move fast and then stop and catch his breath and recover. And
I'm with you, dude. Yeah. I'm with you. Because you know, I don't know if you know my buddy Steve Opat that of Alaskan Odysseys. Yep. He and I talk about that all the time, man. It's like when you're hiking too fast, you miss stuff. You just miss so many things when you're just blowing through there. And you might blow animals out. You just might not see something that you would have otherwise seen. So I'm with you. Walk slow.
Yeah, I like that. I'm glad I can take that back. But and that's the way I even walk around the woods here, like when I'm scouting and stuff. Like there's not really and same thing with hunting. I mean, there's a destination, say you're packing in camp or whatever, but at the same time you're trying to take everything in and observe it at the same point and same token.
Oh, especially for like, you know, for us, it's like, you know, I mean, the Northeast Pennsylvania is a beautiful part of the country, but it's like if you're traveling out to Wyoming or Montana or Colorado to hunt, it's like, sure, you're hunting and sure you want to get something, but it's pretty awesome to be there too, and you want to be able to take it in and enjoy it, you know? Yeah,
definitely. So all right, so with like the aerobic side of it and building that up, so essentially what you're doing is, say you're trying to stay in that target heart rate as you're going, and as you go and you start training more, you're able to do more work within that capability, and that's building the machinery that you're saying.
And you can work at higher intensities. Like you can put out more work without your heart rate jumping. So that means that you'll be able to sustain it for far, far, far longer and recover far, far, far easier. And quite honestly, not beat the crap out of your body, which a lot of like the really, really high intensity conditioning stuff will do if it's not programmed correctly. So the biggest thing is like longevity. And that's, you know, I made the tagline for Human Predator Pack Mule, train smarter, hunt longer. Because I don't know about you, man, but I want to be walking up mountains when I'm 75. I don't want to be, you know what I mean? I don't want this to be a young man's game for me. And if you train like it, you can do it way, way, way later into your life than most people would believe, I think.
Yeah, no, that's I would think that would be everybody's hope, you know, and it's just whether you're doing the right work to be able to sustain that, I guess.
It's important, man. And the thing is like, there's no shame for it. It's like, you know, I can sit here and say these things because I've spent my entire life studying and doing and working on this stuff. And, you know, there's a lot of skin in the game for me because I have tactical operators that if I don't have them prepared and actually always ready for something, then I could literally get guys hurt or they just won't be able to go do their job. So it's like when you have that level of skin in the game, you learn about what really needs to be done, you know?
Yeah, no, that's that would be a little bit nerve wracking, a little bit of pressure on you.
It's fun though, man.
Yeah, I could imagine that'd be pretty awesome to be able to do. And so with the strength side of it, so explain kind of the importance of that and why and what you see from that standpoint.
So strength builds a lot of resilience in your body. And so, you know, it also makes you more efficient. So you spend less energy to do tasks when you have an appropriate level of strength, which is a very good thing. But, you know, it's also armor building. So muscle mass at some level protects your body. So it just works along the same lines of efficiency of like, it's almost like you want to live, you have abilities at each end of the spectrum. So the low and slower aerobic stuff, and then combine that with being relatively strong, and you have a really, really efficient body. And that like can just take more stress is really the easiest way to look at it. One analogy that I've had given to me, I mean, years ago, I don't even remember who said it, but if you think about it, like strength is like a glass, like a big drinking glass. And the more strength you have, the appropriate levels of strength you have, the bigger your glass is. And then you can put more stuff in the glass, which might be conditioning. It might be power. It might be that. So strength really just makes your frame resilient, and it helps you to be efficient when you move. And with that, it has to be movement quality. So it's like, I think one of the things that people don't know is that your brain's always watching. So when you get tired, and if you move like crap when you're tired, you're just telling your brain, well, that's what we do when we're tired. So being able to move well and be strong and have all of these other capabilities keeps us safe, but it also just keeps us efficient in using our energy better.
So, all right. So if you were talking about building strength, what are the types of workouts that, I mean, I know you mentioned some of the stuff that you're doing, but like give us a few more examples, if you would, of things that are strength building type exercises.
Yeah. I mean, so the easiest way to break it down is we have 4 basic movement patterns that we want to follow. We want to hinge, which would be your deadlifting movements. We want to squat. We want to push. So you're thinking push-ups, bench press, stuff like that. And we want to pull. So that'd be your rows or your pull-ups or whatever that might be. And really, you're just going to build your programs around that and kind of just make sure that they're balanced. So each of my strength days, depending, now I do vary from this, is going to have, like on Monday, I do a lower body push, which would be some kind of lunge or a squat. And then with that, I do some pulling. And then on Wednesday, I do bench pressing. Right now I'm benching relatively heavy. And then I have a hinge movement in that. So like single leg Romanian deadlifts. So it's really building it around those movements. If you have those in your program and you're doing them well, and you're doing them at an intensity that doesn't burn you out, like you're probably doing okay. So it's that. I think there's a good parallel there, right? So like if I was like, hey, Beau, I want you to go into the gym every Monday and max out on squats, and every Wednesday max out on deadlifts, you'd look at me like I was a crazy person, because it's like, you're just not going to recover from that. And and it's the same thing with conditioning, where it's like, hey, Beau, I want you to go beat yourself into the ground 3 days a week and then expect to come back from that. So it's like, you can even draw those parallels. And I think the one example that I have that was really, it can be palpable for people, right? So I used to train when I lived back in State College, I used to train a bunch of rugby players and a bunch of football players. And, I'm going to preface this by saying, like, hey, folks, if you like doing CrossFit, do CrossFit. I don't care, but it's not the best way to prepare for other things. If you enjoy that thing, do that thing. But so the rugby player came to me, he's like, man, I really like doing CrossFit because it's the only thing that I've ever done where I feel like I'm playing a rugby game. And you're doing CrossFit. I was like, okay, you play rugby on Saturday, right? He's like, yeah. I was like, well, how do you feel on Sundays? Like shit. It's like, exactly. So you can't do that to yourself all week long and expect to be able to do the other things that you want to be able to do.
Yeah, no, that's a good example of that. And that's I feel like with my own workouts, like I definitely try to use a lot of, I do squats on Mondays, and I do deadlifts I do squats and I do bench press on Mondays. And then I was doing, and there, some other things worked in, but as far as the main strength type things, and then deadlifts and rows on Wednesdays. And then from there, I'm doing more of the cardio stuff in between. But I feel like the biggest gap for me personally is that is the aerobic side of it, where I'm definitely, I can, just from talking to you, I can see where I'm pushing myself too much too often, and I'm struggling with the recovery portion. And like, just, I've noticed the other day, like even like my calves were at a point where like I'd bend down and they would just like lock up, and and that's also probably comes down to stretching a little bit more, but I don't know.
It could be nutrition. It could be a lot of different things, but
yeah, you would know better than me, but I'm, and again, so anybody listening, if don't quote me on things I say. I'm not a professional at this. I'm just speaking from Beau language. So
Sure. No, you're good, man. Well, yeah, and I think that's the thing is there's just proportions, and everything has to have its place. So there's a certain level of strength that you're going to do. There's a certain level of the longer aerobic conditioning you're going to do, and there's a certain level of the more intense stuff that you're going to do. And when everything is just kind of planned out based on what you need right now and falls into the right proportions, things go pretty well. But I think that's the thing is, for a lot of folks, the proportions just get all out of whack, because it's like, for me, 2 examples, like I know I would love CrossFit. I would love to do it because it would be fun, and it would just like, I like that intensity. I also just know better, and I know I would destroy myself doing it. And I'm good at strength. I'm good at picking stuff up. I'm good at jumping, and I'm good at that kind of stuff. And it's like, we tend to bias ourselves towards the things that we're good at. And so it's just, for me, it's taken a certain level of maturity to realize, like, I can't just do that. That's not the best long-term plan. So we all kind of lend ourselves towards those things. And it just takes, like, for me, like, I hurt my hip, I hurt my shoulder, I've hurt my back. And it's like, okay, when are you going to stop being an idiot and just do the things that you need to do? So when I was 26, I stopped powerlifting because I was like, I deadlifted 615. I was like, well, if I try to go to 700, I'm either going to destroy myself or I'm going to have to start taking steroids. So it's like, I don't want to do either of those things, man. So I'm done,
Yeah. No, and I'm sure that's a hard thing to be able to talk to yourself, as far as mentally be able to tell yourself, like, no, this isn't the right thing for me to do, because I'm sure you love doing it.
Oh yeah. And I think one of the things that is tough for people too is accepting that it's about consistency, and that, it's, if you do workouts that don't allow you to be consistent in the way that you need to be consistent, something needs to change. So it's like, I can train 6 days a week right now, which is like, you don't necessarily have to. It's part of it is that I enjoy doing it. But I can do that because the intensity of my training is in the right place on each day, and it's planned out well. And that's the stuff that wins the game, man, is being able to be consistent. And so if you can't be consistent, and it's like, you'll do a workout and you're like, man, I don't feel like I can really train in a good way again for 2 to 3 days, or I'm just beat to crap. It's like, something's got to change,
Yeah, no, I that point right there was something I had written down, the consistency side of it. Like, that's again something that I see, like, so especially when I'm just starting out, like, as far as, say, during hunting season, I don't work out a whole lot as I'm hunting, and then I come out of it and I feel kind of, not into where I was going into the season. Of course. And then you start, if you go into it really hot and heavy, like, off the bat, then, like, all of a sudden I find myself where I'd be working out 5 to 6 days a week, I'm down to 3, because I'll get up in the morning and I'm just like, I'm hurting, like, exactly. Struggling to get through, and yeah, and I mean that consistency correlates to so many other things in life. Everything. I mean, anything you do is, it seems, at least to me, that it's better in doing small amounts every day, rather than, and not just specifically for workouts, but is small amounts every day, rather than, hitting it hard one day and then taking a couple days off. And
here's a good way to think about it. You're a good bow hunter. I would imagine when you put your bow down for a little bit, the first time you pick it up, I'm guessing that you're not launching arrows at 70 yards the first time you pick your bow back up. No, right? You might be doing blind bail stuff, or you're like, I'm working on my anchor again, or I'm working on, finding my sight picture again. Training's the same way, man. Like, you can't just start back up and start launching arrows at 70 yards and expect it to be there. And then the same thing with kind of correlates with hunting, right? So it's like, if you start an archery season and you're hunting a lot, but you're not shooting your bow in between the times that you're hunting, like, that's not a good thing. Mm-hmm. It's like, you're not going to be necessarily as prepared as you need to be to go out and to draw on a deer. Same thing. It's like, in hunting season, I don't train as much either. I'm right there with you, but I just make sure that I hit 1 or 2 strength workouts a week, and I make sure I do a little bit of cardiac output, and just to make sure that, when we get to December or January and I'm done hunting, well, I hunt waterfowl in the winter because I really like that. But like when I'm done doing the strenuous type hunting, that I can pick up my training again. And it just follows the same way in the same cycle.
You're essentially PMing your machine, like you're preventative maintenance on it and keeping it running at that. You might not be getting to a point where you're growing with it, but you're just continually oiling it and making sure everything's running smoothly.
Exactly. And then you just recalibrate and you think, okay, what are my needs now? And finding that kind of stuff out. And then you just start the cycle over again, and you learn a little bit the next time. Yeah.
That's it's so true. I mean, the analogy you gave with the bow there, like that's again another thing that recently I was like, well, one of the reasons is I'm going to a camp next week. Well, by the time this airs, I've already been there, but my buddy Dan has these elk-shaped camps, and I'm going to it to learn some stuff about elk hunting. And I'm like, he has a part in there where you got to shoot your bow and see where your max effective range is. And I'm like, well, I am not at a point where I can be doing that. So, I started in my basement. I'm just shooting when I'm doing my workouts down there, I'll just shoot even 4 arrows in the morning, just getting the anchor back, getting stuff. And then just this past week, I moved out to the yard and started shooting, a little bit further. Because I know if I would have picked up my bow that first time and went out and tried shooting even 40 yards, it wouldn't be even close to where I was beforehand.
Exactly. And it's the same thing as like, if you're it's the difference between like learning / practice and performance. And I think a lot of people with their workouts, they're constantly trying to perform rather than learn and practice. And if you're constantly trying to perform, you don't develop the other things that you need, like the machinery that you need, to go back to that analogy, to be able to actually go out and perform when it is game time.
Yeah. And another thing that you're saying about building up that machinery, so when you have when you need to use it, you can, so that's like when it comes down to that pack out. Yeah, that might be harder than you might normally be doing, and maybe for a longer period of time, but you already have that base and you already have that ability. You can get through it, at that point.
You're going to do it. I mean, you're going to do it. And, the thing is like, I'll give you an example from training. So on the cycle that I deadlifted 615, the training cycle that got me there, the heaviest weight that I deadlifted during that entire cycle was 505 pounds. And I did it for 2 sets of 3. And that was the heaviest I went. So it's like, your body doesn't need to be the whole way at its max to be able to get there when you need it to. It just needs to have the machinery to be able to do it. So it's like, if you're doing some hikes in the summer at 20% of your, or 20% of your body weight, and then maybe you jack it up a little bit to get used to your pack, you're going to be just fine. You're going to be all right.
Yeah.
And it's just like, unless it's like 1,000,000 degrees outside, what's the rush? You'll get there. Take your time. Use your trekking poles and take your time. It'll be just fine. So
yeah,
I think that's it too. It's like you don't need to set a land speed record. You just need to get where you're going.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And think about it too. Like, say you're doing a 7-day hunt, or maybe even a 10-day hunt, or a 14-day hunt. It's the consistent effort of being able to do that every single day.
Yep.
And I keep bringing back my own examples of it because that's what I can relate to. But I remember, and I've told this story before, but I remember I was on a 14-day backcountry hunt in Colorado and for elk, and I think it was 2018. And by day like 11 or so, maybe 11 or 12, I got really sick. Like my immune system was just down. I wasn't prepared to work like that for that long period of time, and my body just shut down, and it was extremely difficult.
That's the thing, is like also being able to understand, like we'll call them your refractory periods, when like you need to rest and you need to shut down. And I think that's tough because we get so amped up, where it's like, I only got 2 weeks, man. Like I got to make this happen, when it's like, really, you need to be able to rest when it's time to rest. And that's what my buddy Steve, he and I went up to Well, you and I were relatively close to each other about the same time last year hunting caribou. And, one of the things going up, we were talking about was Alaska doesn't give a shit. Like, you just have to be able to hunt when it's time to hunt. And if it's, if the fog rolls in, just relax, man. Take it easy. Let the fog roll out. And then when you can hunt, be ready to hunt again. And I think that's the thing, is being able to toggle your switch a little bit and just like cool your jets, brother. Like, you'll be able to hunt eventually and just be ready to go when it's time to go,
Yeah. And then you're operating at your highest potential, and you're not wasting energy when you don't need to. And so there's a couple examples, like what you just said in Alaska. We did that too. I felt like, I'm used to wanting to be, up at first light doing all this stuff, but we were getting fogged in until 8 a.m. every day. So I was like, so why am I going to get up at 5 and just sit there and wait for the fog when I can just get a couple hours more rest? Oh, yeah. And it was consistent doing that. I was like, okay, that made sense. And the same thing, even if you can relate it to whitetail hunting. So like, say you're during the rut and you have 7 days off and you can hunt, and in Pennsylvania you get 6 days of that to hunt for the most part. But, if I'm sitting in a tree dark to dark every day, I'm getting super wore out and I'm not mentally there. And that was something, it took me a long time to learn this. My dad told me it years before I listened to it, but he's like, if you're getting wore out and you're not feeling like you're all there, he's like, sleep in a little bit and hunt your way in the morning, or, do something where you're not completely just, because he goes, you're not there mentally. You're not if your opportunity comes when you're in that state, you might not be able to capitalize on it.
Yeah. Or just go when the conditions are right. Like that's one of the problems that I have, is like, I just want to hunt all the time. And I'm like, screw it, I'm just going to go anyway. When it's like, you probably shouldn't, and you should probably just rest. So I get it, man. It's tough to do too, and it's like the bull that I killed last year, dude, we didn't leave camp till 3:00 in the afternoon. Like, you know what I mean? But you have until 11.
Yeah, I was
gonna say, it's not light anymore, but we didn't even leave camp till 3 PM. It was like, we were messing around, making sure people's guns were sighted. Like, somebody had trouble with their gun. Like, we were working on their gun, like eating, making sure it's like, all right, well, we got to go get the boat anyway. Let's go hunting. So,
yeah. So how was that hunt? Like, how was that hunt for you?
It was awesome, man. I mean, quite honestly, I know you flew, but like that drive up the Dalton Highway, it's super cool. Like, you got to do it at some point.
Yeah.
It is just I actually got to drive. We had to pick up a boat in Wasilla, Alaska. So I got to drive from Anchorage the whole way to Fairbanks, and then from Fairbanks the whole way to Prudhoe Bay. And so it's like 1,000 miles. But dude, you see everything. It is just an incredible drive. I mean, and the hunt was cool, man. It's like we had jet boats, so we were able to get 5 miles out that way. And at first we were nervous, man, because we were seeing caribou, but there were no bulls. It was like 3 or 4 days before bulls started showing up. And Steve was getting nervous. He's like, dude, where are they at? Where are the bulls? And it's like, I don't know. And I was like, I was nervous too. I was like, we got time, man. We got time. And then they just started showing up. And we had put a stock on one, and, we were able to kill one night. And then the day that Steve and I had to go get the boat, in your mind, you see this like perfect scenario, right? Like, you want to have a good stalk. You want to see him from a couple miles away. And you're like, man, how are we going to get there and figure it out? But Steve and I were going to get the boat and he had to go to the bathroom. And so he walks up off of the river bottom and is up on this ledge. And he's like glassing while he's going to the bathroom. He's like, bring me spotting soap. So we go, I sprint up.
You're like, pull up your pants first, then I'll bring it up.
But I started running up. And he sees the bull that I eventually killed out in the flat, but he was outside the rifle corridor, and he's like, I don't know, man. He's like, we could try to get a stalk on, but like, there's not a lot of cover over there. I was like, okay. And so in my mind, like, I saw him, and there was just something, dude. Like, I knew, like, that's the one that I wanted, and so I would have sat there till the next day. I would have slept right there. But there were 2 bulls, maybe a couple maybe a mile upriver. On the same side of the stream as us. And he's like, let's go try to get those. And if we don't get them, we'll see what this guy's doing. And I was like reluctant, but I was like, okay, he's probably right. We got to take the opportunity that we have. So we go up and we blew the stalk. Like, there was the Steve and I had hunted black bears in Alaska before, but that was the first time, we'd really tried to stalk something together, and we blew it. And we just weren't coordinated. So we were like, screw it, let's go back up for the big guy. And we get in the boat and we're going down. And Steve's like, shit, he's crossing the river. We got to go. And so we start sprinting to the boat. And he's like, are you okay with me beaching the boat and you shooting out of it? Which is legal in Alaska. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I should be humble about this situation. You know what I mean? Because it's like you see the situation that you want. I was like, how many opportunities am I going to get?
Yeah.
So he beaches the boat and I'm laying prone and I can't see over the rocks. So for some odd reason, I don't know why, I stand up and I'm like, I can do this. And Steve ranges and he's like 200 yards. And I was like, oh, I can do that. And I tried to shoot offhand at 200 yards like a buffoon. And I missed, obviously. And so he starts trying to circle to get our wind. So I drop down and I get a rest on the side of the boat. And he circled us to about 170 yards. And I hit him high shoulder and dropped him. And it was, yeah, it was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool experience, man.
No, that's awesome. And like you said, you have to take those opportunities as they come. It's like, it was, the same thing when I was up there. We did a 9.5 mile loop the one day, beautiful country, all this stuff. And then I ended up shooting my caribou. Literally, I got out of the tent and the fog's just lifting. I put my binos on the tripod and looked through them, and they were right there, like they were coming down the valley.
Really?
And just ran up, and it all happened in a matter of 15 minutes. I'm taking my Crocs off, throwing my boots on, and there you go. And yeah, it happens like that, So
that's the beautiful thing about being up there. And when we set our camp, and I took a lot of guidance from Steve, because I was like, I've never hunted caribou before. This guy's done it for 10 years. He's like, we just need to have a camp that we can hunt from, because, for us, the thing that I learned about hunting caribou, and I'll probably try to do it every year until I die now, is like, you got to be able to, for them, because you don't know you can't predict them. You just have to be somewhere where you can see and somewhere you can move. And so, that's it, man. Like we had a caribou roll through camp the first day, and we tried to set up the one chick that was with us hunting, like, take your shot, and she just couldn't get a shot. But it's like, if you're you just have to be there, man. And that's how it works for them. It's not like it's not as technical as hunting whitetails or anything like that. It's just like, you just got to be there and you got to be able to move.
Yep. No, that makes total sense. And, I always thought, or I guess I thought when I went up to Alaska to hunt caribou, that was like almost like a bucket list thing. I'm like, oh, hunt caribou, then I'll hunt some other species and do, then after doing it, I was like, I'm already planning on going back up there in 2024 with taking my dad up and my brother and trying to, I loved it. Like, I think I could definitely hunt them every year. It's just like,
oh, dude,
awesome.
They're so goofy too. Like, one minute you'll see them, and I'm sure you can speak to this too. They'll stand there and stand still for like an hour, and then all of a sudden they will just be gone. It is they're such a goofy critter, man.
Yeah.
I was jealous. I was listening to your podcast that you did with Donnie. I was jealous. I've hunted in Alaska now in my life 17 days. I haven't seen a grizzly bear yet.
Really?
I haven't seen one. I hunted in the Chugach National Forest for black bears.
Yep.
I hunted on the tundra. I haven't seen a bear yet. I haven't seen one.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, we
had
saw
one go through camp, didn't you?
Yeah, we had one go through camp. We had two up in the saddle on the second day. We were watching them eat berries up there, and then another one over. There was at one point there was a grizzly bear eating, and then above them on the ridge was caribou running the skyline, and it was.
Oh, that's cool.
They were probably a mile apart, but from our view, it looked like they were like just right on top of each other.
Sure.
So it was pretty. It's pretty wild to be able to see that.
Dude, that's super neat. I'm jealous of that. I am.
Yeah, and then right before we flew in, our pilot was like, yeah, we just had some other guys that were in camp have a grizzly bear go through their entire tent while they were out hunting, like just completely shredded it, and they had to go in and pick them up. And I was like, a little bit kind of on edge.
Sure.
It's my first time ever hunting in grizzly country, and I'd been up to Alaska. I was in the Chugach there before, but just I was up there with Heather Kelly from Heather's Choice, who Steve's friends with, and we went up there and did some whitewater rafting and camped on a glacier and stuff. But I'd never seen one really to that point, so on a hunt. So it was pretty awesome.
It's different, man. I'll tell you. I remember, when I went up to hunt black bears, and I was with this guy Joe Ferranato and this other guy Morgan Mason, and then Steve had some other friends there, and Steve and the other friends went fishing. They went halibut fishing. And I was like, I kind of want to go, but like I came here to hunt bears, so I think that's what I'm going to do. And so we took the jet boat across this lake, and we start hiking up this ridge, and we start seeing salmon carcass, and then we look over, and a guy had a bait station set up. So obviously we got away from the guy's bait station, but Joe looks back at me, he goes, I think I'm going to chamber around. And that was the first time in my life where I was ever like, oh shit, man. Like,
yeah.
That's serious. Like, we have to be prepared because, it's just eerie, man, when you're not, we have black bears here, but it's like, you say, get out of here, and they leave, you know what I mean? So it's just, it is an eerie feeling the first time.
Yeah, I never think twice about black bears. You guys have a ton of them down there too.
Oh, ton, yeah.
I worked a while. I think I might have been telling you, but I worked down in Virginia down that way, and I always would go hiking in George Washington National Forest.
Oh, cool.
And do actually Matt would send me hikes to go on and stuff and check out, and I saw a couple black bears there just on hikes on main trails and stuff, and it seems like that place is loaded with them.
Oh yeah, dude. I was going out to set my tree stand to a few weeks. I was setting a tree stand or something, or doing some scouting before archery season this year. And I walked out on the property that I hunt, and a bear walked out 5 yards behind me, just trying to see what I was. He didn't have my wind.
Yeah.
I was like, hey man, what are you doing? And he was just like, oh, and he took off. And it's like, so you don't worry about black bears too much, man. Those grizzlies, they're eerie suckers, man.
Like when we were cutting up our caribou, like we always had like one person facing one way, one on the other. And like, I remember my buddy Michael was like, yeah, I'll take a load of meat back to camp. And I was like, nah, I think we should kind of just hang out together. Try to be smart about it, and always have a gun or bear spray on you at all times. Just
there's no sense in being silly.
No, it's no sense in trying to act tough. It's just like be smart about it.
No way. Did you guys see wolves?
No, we didn't. I want to see a wolf or a pack of wolves. I never saw any of those. Did you guys?
So we had one that was within 20 yards of our tents, and I would find their tracks every morning, but I didn't get to see them, man.
Really?
Yeah, I really wanted to see some wolves, but just tracks.
I know. I'm sure you had a wolf tag too when you were up there.
We had, yep. And I'm like, it was going to be one of those in the moment, how do I feel things? Because it's like, there's part of me is like, can I do it? I'm not sure, because I've never been certain of whether or not I could pull the trigger when I had a wolf in the scope. So I was going to find out.
Yeah. You'd have to make a decision there at that point.
Yep.
I just wanted to see one. I didn't care if I got one or anything. Like, I just wanted to see a wolf. Like, and you heard it in that podcast with Donnie, but when I had an Arctic fox come up to camp, and like, it was funny because I didn't know like what kind of fox it was, but we just called it an Arctic fox because we were in the Arctic, and that's what it ended up being. But it was
cool.
It was really cool just to see that. It's like almost like it never saw people before, and I'm sure it was because that camp had been used before, but it was pretty funny.
That is cool, man. They're neat looking.
They are. Yeah. It's awesome to be able to see all of those things. So where else have you been on some other hunts, like say in the lower 48 out west and stuff?
Mostly just Wyoming. Wyoming. Yeah. I have a buddy he's actually brilliant. He's an aerospace engineer. And so, he's studying wind energy and all kinds of stuff at the University of Wyoming in Laramie. And so, a couple of years ago, he wanted to get into hunting. So my buddy Christian and I were like, well, we'll come go hunting with you. So we got some pronghorn tags, and I don't know if you've ever hunted pronghorns, but it's awesome. It's just fun. It is. The thing about pronghorns is, you're going to see them every day. You're going to see them, and you're going to get a stalk every day. And then, as long as you're a decent shot, you're going to come home with some meat. So I've done that. I've actually hunted them once, and then I hunted elk in Wyoming last year too. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah. It's a different beast though, man. That shit's tough.
Yeah, it definitely is. Pronghorn, I've never hunted them. My brother's been hunting them he's got the last 2 years. He got some nice bucks, and he loves it. He's like, man, he goes, it's awesome. You're seeing game every day and getting to make plays and stalks, and you blow a few and then you get another chance. And he's like, it's a lot of fun.
Oh, dude, the unit that we were hunting was like hunting the moon, man. Like there was no cover, and it was just like you're either shooting far or you're getting set up. You almost had to set up for like an ambush. And there were like, I'll call them buttes because I'm an Easterner and I don't know actually what I'm looking at. So I'm gonna call them buttes. And there were a few things that we could sneak around like that. But dude, it's in that unit, that part made it challenging, but it was just fun because like, and they were rutting. So we went the first week of October. So like just sitting there and watch them rut and watch them run each other off and watch them breed and stuff, dude. It was just a really cool experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's pretty cool that so you've been friends with Steve for quite a while, Steve Opat.
A few years, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I've talked to him. I've talked to him on the phone. We text back and forth. He was actually just texting me the other day about something, and I still haven't got him on the podcast yet. I need to do that. He's
got stories.
He's a wealth of knowledge. Yeah,
he is.
When we talk when a couple times on the phone, it was just like I felt like I've known him my whole life. Like he's
yeah, dude.
Very personable person.
He just wants to help, and he's excited about getting people into the outdoors and getting people to do things that they haven't done before. And he really is just he's just a solid dude. And that was like, you know, I had known him, just for a couple of months, and he just called me. It was like, we texted Matt and I was like, you guys should really come up and go to bear camp. And I was like, okay, well, when is it? He's like, well, like Tuesday. And I was like, all right. So I was like, screw it. And I hopped on a plane and went to Alaska and hunted bears with him. And now like every year we're going to be doing something together. This year it's caribou again. Next year we're going to go hunt moose. He's actually next Thursday. We're meeting in California to hunt turkeys. So,
oh, no way. That's awesome.
Yeah. He's a solid guy, man. You should he'll have some stories for you. You should have him on.
Yeah. I'd like to just have him on just to talk stories. Like
oh, dude,
I'm sure he's got a ton of them, you know?
He wrote it up in an article for Peterson's Hunting, but you'll have to ask him about, he was hunting moose with, Trail. I don't know the guy's last name, but from Go Hunt.
Yeah.
And got charged by a grizzly bear. He should have him tell you that story, dude. It is terrifying and wicked all at the same time. It is super cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And you go up there with him, you don't even see a bear.
I know, dude. It's like, I just want to see one. I was like, you could be a mile away. Yeah. Don't need to be anywhere near me, but I just wanted to see you.
Be careful what you wish for.
Fair enough, dude. Fair enough. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. But before we end this, I did have one question I wanted to ask it back on the fitness side of things. So what about from a recovery standpoint with, say, stretching or anything like that? Are you a big fan of it? What or not? What's your kind of thoughts on that?
I mean, I think the way to look at recovery is, are you covering your bases physiologically? When I say that, I mean, are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep? Are you eating enough? And are you eating like an adult? And are you drinking enough water? I think that's where you start. And then I think from there, it's really about, I'll say, calming yourself down after your lift. And if stretching helps you do that, go ahead. And I think that's really, because you want to be technical, you want to try to get your body to shift from sympathetic, which is like your fight or flight mode, to parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest mode. And you want to really facilitate that process. So with my guys, we do like a couch stretch. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like you put one knee down on the ground, and like maybe that foot is up on the wall, and then your other knee is up in front of you, and you're just supporting yourself flat that way. Hang out there for a couple minutes and breathe. We do some other different types of breathing exercises just to kind of tone down, and then move on with our day. But the mobility work and the stretching and that kind of stuff is built into the programming. So like you'll do it between lifts and stuff like that. Gotcha. So I think it can facilitate like quality movement and making sure that you're good. And I think really after lifting, the biggest thing is just like taking yourself from that, like, because lifting is essentially, it's a threat to your body, and your body's adapting to a threat. So it's like, we have to say, okay, well, the threat's gone now. We can rest. And that's really what's going to help you recover.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Well, cool. So first of all, Todd, thanks for coming on and talking to me here, man. I had a good time talking about it and hearing your stories. That Alaska hunt was, that caribou hunt was awesome, and it's making me miss not going back there this year. But I'm going to go to Alaska quite a few more times, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, dude, me too. I appreciate you having me, man. I you asked some great questions, and I hope a lot of folks listen to this, and I hope it helps them out. Yeah,
awesome. So where can people find any of your stuff, your programs, anything?
Yeah. Easiest thing to do is just follow my Instagram accounts, which are, one is at Todd_Bumgardner, and then the hunting fitness Human Predator Pack Mule is just at Human Predator Pack Mule. Those are the easiest things to do.
Awesome. And I would highly recommend following you on Instagram. Every once in a while, you go on some hilarious Instagram stories that
dude,
make me just crack up when I watch them.
I just like having fun, man. Yeah. If I can make a few people laugh every day, I'm doing something right.
I keep it up. I appreciate that.
Thanks, dude. Thanks, man.
All right. We'll talk to you, Todd.
All right. Tip out.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.